today we'll be hosting Carine Assouad, who also happens to be my sister. Carine is the founder of Semsom, her book club, and the Empowering Tribe. And she is the CEO of Dunkin Leb. She has been for quite some time now.
Yes.
So obviously, she's gone through some crisis of her own. We wanted to go through her methodologies to overcome crisis, to really nail it, succeed, grow, and become even stronger after the crisis is over. So thank you, Carine, for accepting our invitation. We're very, very lucky to have you. And I'll leave the floor to you and let you walk us through some of the best techniques that you've discovered.
Thank you, Carine. I'm super happy to be here and share our insights on crisis management. As you know, anyone that operates in Lebanon has been through a lot of crises, and we've been operating for 28 years now, so plenty of crises along the way. But we're still here, we're still smiling, and we're going to be here for the next 20 years as well. So let me share some of our insights on how to deal with a crisis. For me, any crisis that we look at, we have three major steps. The first step is to dig in and to take difficult decisions, and we're going to be talking about the different steps that I would recommend on the dig in phase. Then the second is to take a step back, because every crisis is an opportunity. So after taking care of whatever's on fire, we need to take a step back and try to see where the opportunities are, and finally to fly and to grow even stronger after the crisis. So first, when we're talking about dig in, the most important person to focus on is you. It's your mindset that's going to be taking you through the crisis, and you need to be focusing on yourself, on your mindset, on your energy, on filling your energy bucket. This is a topic on itself, but this is extremely important to be able to get through a crisis. The second thing is look at three things to start with. First, assess how long the crisis is going to go. We have three levels of crisis: red, orange, pink, and depending on the length and the severity of the crisis, we know what to do in each one of these situations. Second, gather as much information as possible. I usually make it a habit to call 10 people that I think have relevant information around this particular topic every time I'm faced with a crisis and I need to take important decisions. And second, in a crisis, we always look inside first, and then we look at the outside. In normal times, you look at consumers, the problem you're solving, etc. But when we're talking about crisis, you need to be solid from within. So you are a leader first, and then you manage the crisis. And then you start thinking of consumers, etc. So first, leading first is motivating your team during a crisis, because a crisis hits everyone, and it hits you and everyone around you. So the step one is leading. Leading is when you're going through the crisis, you're down, you're being hit by whatever crisis is in front of you, but your team as well. So they need to feel that you can empathize with them, you can put yourself in their shoes. So your leading hat to start with is more important than your managing hat. So being honest, transparent about the situation, telling them what will happen with their salaries. For the next 2 months, we're paying full salary. If the crisis is not over by then, we'll consider half salary. You're going to be working from home. You're going to be working from the office. Give them as much as you know. And when you don't know, you just tell them, on this topic, I don't know. We'll need to wait and see what happens, because they need you to be honest and transparent with them and acknowledge their feeling. It's not easy to go through a crisis, but when you're doing it as a group, it becomes much easier. Then on motivation during the crisis, I like to go back to why we're in business. So for Dunkin, for example, because this is the business in my case that's been through the most crisis, it's reminding people that we're here to spread happiness. And in times of crisis, our role is even more important. We want people to feel that this is their happy place and to forget about everything that's happening around them. So focusing on the why, reminding people why we're in business in the first place is super important during a crisis, focusing on the value and reminding everyone that at the end, this shall pass. So this is on the leadership side. Second, on the management side, you need to take difficult decisions. And the crisis is really a test for you to see how much you can take difficult decisions. And it's focusing on what's essential versus what's non-essential during a crisis. Focusing on reducing what is not essential so that you can really focus on what is essential and what is essential today, not necessarily in normal times. So is this what you're doing? Is it relevant for your customers' needs today? Is this gonna help you become a stronger company after the crisis? So this is what you need to be focusing on. And sometimes some people like to start from a clean sheet of paper. Today, what is it that I need? Focus on what I need and then remove everything else. So I usually like to ask three questions. First, what we're doing now, or this investment, or whatever decision you need to take, is it in line with our purpose, vision, and mission? Is it important to our customers today? And third, will this help us become a better company in the future? So for example, now typically in Lebanon, as you know, Lebanon is going through war, and we're focusing on AI training. Our whole team is going through an AI project and AI training, because now is the time to really focus on things that will help us become better after this crisis is over. So this is an example. When it comes to people, letting go of some people is going to be the most difficult decision that you're going to have to do during a crisis. I hope you won't, but sometimes this is something that you'll need to do. So it's looking at every department, thinking of what's essential, what's not essential, who are your star employees and who are not. So when you need to let go people, do it in batch. Do it as early as possible, and it's very important to reassure everybody that is still in the company that you're not going to do it again. Okay, when you're doing it in batch, it's easier also for them, because like it's not going to be one and then 2 days later there's someone else, 3 days later there's someone else. So everyone in the company now is thinking, when is my turn is going to come. When you do it in batch, so these are the departments. In our case, we had to shut down departments. Like when the crisis in Lebanon started a few years ago, we had a department that was only opening stores, and we knew that for the foreseeable future, we're not going to be opening any new stores. So we had to shut down a department and lay off a whole department. So it's important for everyone to understand why this happened, and to reassure whoever is still in the company that this is not going to happen to them in the near future. And the last point on the management side is on the customer side. So what are the customer changes that are happening? Let's say during COVID, everybody was at home. They were not coming to our stores anymore. So the customer behavior completely changed. And our mission, as I was saying, is about spreading happiness. How can you spread happiness over delivery if you don't have this connection with the consumer? So what we started doing is started writing positive quotes on the bags, on the cups, just to create this connection with the consumer. And we had so many comments that people were buying our coffee for the positive quotes that was putting a smile on their faces. So remembering why you're doing what you're doing, what are the changes in the consumer behavior, and how can you adapt your way of doing business for the new changes to stay relevant to the consumer's needs today. And the most important, obviously, is looking at the numbers and looking at the metrics. So looking at cash flow, that becomes more important than profitability. These are some of Carine's slides. So she would be the expert to talk about this. The speed versus the quality of the solution in a crisis. Sometimes going fast and having something good enough is better than going slowly to wait until you have something perfect. Thinking about short-term versus long-term. Also in the crisis, this changes. We talked about cash flow. Cash flow becomes the most important part. We're going to talk a little bit more about cash flow and looking inside and then outside. Cash flow is so important during a crisis. It's not about how profitable your business is, but how much cash you are bringing to be able to stay afloat. So reducing inventory, incentivizing the team to decrease the receivable, selling. We looked at our inventory and we started doing lots of offers and promotions with the product that we had, so that we didn't have to buy new products anymore. Protecting your cash, so having separate bank account. Literally, we have a bank with our loans and another bank where we have our cash flow to avoid any problems or surprises during a crisis. Thinking of who you are paying to, like going from the most vulnerable to the least vulnerable, whether it's your suppliers or it's your landlords, because if you have less cash than what you were expecting, who to pay first? Salary first, then suppliers and landlords. We look at small individual before companies, small companies before large companies, until we are able to pay everyone. And finally, having a lighter structure really helps. So cutting costs, looking at high margin items, renegotiating everything, landlords, payment terms, everything that can be renegotiated, and look at variable cost versus fixed cost. So if you have rents that usually were a fixed cost, turn them into a percentage of sales. And most landlords, in our case, were amazing during the crisis. They all understood that we are in this problem together and we need to help each other to be able to get to the other side of the crisis. So ask for percentage of sales, ask for labor per hour, work with freelancers. Anyway, look at how you can do to be able to reduce your cost as much as possible to keep afloat and go through the crisis. So this was the game. Now that you took these difficult decisions, the next step is to take a step back. And this is where magic happens, because every crisis is also an opportunity to do things differently, to reorganize yourself, and to become a better company after the crisis. So we usually look at two types of opportunities, things that are that you can test, so exploring new things that you've never done before. And second is looking at what you're good at and going deep at what you're good at. So then you try to reconfigure your business, re-questioning your business plan, re-questioning every single thing that you're doing. You know, sometimes when you've been in business for a long time, and I hear this often, we've been doing this for 15 years, we've been doing this for 20 years. Well, the word have changed. The word today is very different than the word 20 years ago. So a crisis is a great opportunity to re-question everything that your team has been used to, and break some of the patterns that you cannot break in normal times. And I like to use the uncommon service methodology for this when it comes to a consumer. When you look at what's important to your customer and decide to focus on what's important and to become less good at what is not important to them. Because if we want to be exceptional at everything, we're going to end up being average at everything. So a crisis is a good opportunity to refocus on what really matters to your consumer. And then reallocation of capital is super important. We have Professor Gulati, which is one of my favorite Harvard professors, that was telling us that 9% of companies go out of the crisis better than when they entered. So you want to be in these 9%. You don't want to be in the others that were on the other side of the statistic. So it's looking at investment as much as cost cutting and crisis management. So the rule is the 80-20 rule. So 20% of your budget has to be allocated on things that will help you grow and become better after, and 80% will be working on things that we discuss. So offensive, not only defensive when it comes to crisis, and then flying and becoming better after. And the last part is to fly. Because the good news about the crisis is that even a crisis has an end. And once the crisis is gone, now that you've really worked on yourself, you took hard decisions, you looked at opportunities to be able to grow better and become a better company after the crisis, now it's your time to fly. When the crisis is over, to directly go into this growth mode really fast. And this is something we were struggling with. When you're in survival mode for like 5 years, it's difficult to decide that, okay, now I have to switch and go full-fledged on a growth mode. And this is on you. This is on you to push your team to stop the survival mode habits and to be able to grow and fly and become the best in your industry. So I hope this was helpful, Carine, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Christine. I definitely have a lot of questions. This is 28 years of you working in Lebanon, so on and off crisis.
More on than off, unfortunately.
More on than off crisis, and it shows. Thank you for that. So I would like to dig deeper on some best practices that you actually implement. You spoke about one of them, which is the red, pink, and yellow-orange crisis. So can you talk about the labeling of crisis? Why is it important, and how can companies do it?
Great question, Carine. It's important in any crisis to be prepared. And I think one of the reasons why we're still standing in Lebanon in spite of everything is that when the WhatsApp crisis happened, if you remember, it was, I think it was Thursday or Friday. On Monday, I had a meeting with my management team, and I told them this is a 10 years crisis. We need to be ready for everything that might go wrong. And we had a list, and we were able to actually have on this list, unfortunately, everything on this board happened, except there's one thing we didn't think about, which was having 2 time zones. And this way, the country surprised us. But the thing is, once you are prepared to a crisis, automatically everybody is ready for it. So the fact that we had a list of everything that can go wrong, the things that we felt has the biggest impact on our business were labeled red. The ones that had an impact on a part of the business or a region, these were orange. And then the pink are the ones that will affect somehow, but it will be life as usual.
If I remember correctly, it's also the crisis itself. So it's either a long crisis that's going to be a full disruption, and that's red.
Absolutely.
The
so this is red.
One is impacting a part of our business, but it might also be punctual, and it's not necessarily
and regional. So sometimes when in Lebanon, sometimes something is happening in the south and not in the north, etc. So this would be orange.
Regional within Lebanon.
Yes, within Lebanon. And then pink is when it's one department or one incident, but that is not affecting the mindset of the rest of the company.
And this level of disruption is communicated to the whole team. So
yes,
everybody knows we're in a red crisis, we're in a
so
pink crisis.
In normal times, outside of a crisis, we do crisis training and very detailed crisis training on the orange, red, and red, orange, and pink types of crisis. So whenever we're in the crisis, every single person knows what they have to do. And I'm going to give you an example. When the explosion of 2020 happened in Beirut, we just had an earthquake training. And a lot of people thought that this was an earthquake. I thought it was an earthquake too. So directly the managers, I remember in Sodeko, the manager screamed and said, this is an earthquake. We're going to have another one. Just cover your heads. So the store was packed. We had people putting their head under the tables, etc. So when the second explosion happened and the glass fell on everyone, we had minor injuries, while unfortunately our neighbors had more serious injuries. So being prepared for different types of crises that can happen in your country. In Lebanon, we talk about explosion, maybe another country, they will have other kind of crises. But being prepared is very important to the different, and labeling the different types of crises so that everyone in your organization knows exactly what to do.
Yeah. And this is something you do ahead of time. So you actually label, have those discussions, those training when everything is going well, so that people
And we did multiple simulations. So we had 2 days where we simulated multiple kind of crises. So we try to make them fun a little bit in the preparation so that it sticks in people's mind. But the thing, it's better to shock them when everything is okay. I remember the day the managers of the stores, we had 20 managers, 25 that came into the room and look at this board, and I had like all the different coming in, and they were like, what's happening? And they were really shocked. But I'd rather have them shocked when we are calm, cold-headed, and for them to have the right habits and the right reflexes than
when the
crisis happens and we don't know what to do. So this is very, very important. Preparation is key for sure.
Preparation is key. The second is during the crisis. One of the best practices I know and I really like at Dunkin is the Solidarity Fund, I think you call it. So I think a lot of our startup reached out saying, how can we support without, supporting too much? How can I help without jeopardizing my business? So, all our founders really think a lot about their team, but it's a fine line between, saving everybody and saving the company. So first of all, what's your view on that? And second of all, if you can deep dive on the Solidarity Fund that you have.
Yeah, a great question again. First, the role of the founder is to protect the company, because the company is made of people. When you're protecting the company, you're protecting the jobs of the people. But what sometimes, especially in Lebanon nowadays, like we have so many crises. We have around 200, 300 employees. Each one of them is a social case. Like if we needed to go and talk to everyone, everyone is having something dramatic happening in their life. So as you said, from one side we want to help, from the other side there's a limit to how much we can help. So what we ended up doing is to have a budget, and it could be depending on the size of your company. It could be $1,000 or $100,000. So it's but to have a specific budget,
which is a fund,
yeah, that you would allocate. Let's say someone had medical emergency that will cost $2,000. So they will take $2,000 from this fund and they will pay it back over 10 months. So we will subtract $200 from their salary automatically over 10 months. And this is how we are putting money back into the fund. Yes, so the fund is you give money, and then when people give money back, this is when you can give money again.
Revolving credit, internal revolving credit.
Absolutely, and it's under the HR. I don't know who gets what. No one knows, because also we want the confidentiality for the team members. It's very difficult for people to ask for help. So when they know that this is between them and the HR, it's only them and two people that know about this money, and it's done in a very elegant way, if you want. Yes. So, and people really appreciate the fact that we
you have almost no a default, right? Everybody.
No. Even people who leave, they pay from their last salary. We never had anyone defaulting from this, because really they are so appreciative about the fact that we're there for them when they need it the most. And I think it's a great thing to do. And it's contained, so it's not affecting the company either.
So the risk itself would not be huge.
Absolutely.
It's microcredit.
Absolutely. And it's sometimes people need $500. You'd be surprised how much, like sometimes when you're going from paycheck to paycheck, a surprise can be as small as $500.
And you had mentioned last time we spoke the role of the CEO in a crisis. Typically, you just said it's the HR that manages this. So we kind of feel bipolar at times,
schizophrenic, I call it. Yes.
So at the same time, you want to be in the now and deal with the urgency of the situation, but at the same time, the world continues to go forward. Your competitors are still there. So how do you manage this double-sided situation?
Exactly. And I feel in Lebanon, unfortunately, we all have to become schizophrenic nowadays, because what's happening is absolutely horrible, but you still need to detach yourself to be able to keep walking. So this is also 80-20 rule. So either you, for me, for example, Friday is when I'm focusing on the crisis and everything that is going wrong and how I need to deal with it. And then the rest of the week, I'm focusing on growth and what is it that we can do. For example, we came up with something with you as well on doing Dunkin offices, you know. So you need to still be creative. So because a lot of people are working from home, we created places in our stores that have very high speed internet. Everybody's there, is working, so it's a calm environment, etc. So there are opportunities and there are some things that you can do differently in a crisis versus another crisis, but you need to have the mental bandwidth to do it. So we have two ways of approaching this. Either everyone in the team try to disconnect, which was very difficult, because some people, when you are in operations and you're on the ground, it's more difficult than when you are when you take a step back. Or you have a couple of people that are focused on growth. In our organization, I'm the one focused on growth.
Physically,
I'm physically in Dubai right now, and it helped me a lot to be able to add more value to the company in Lebanon. So I'm we're doing this together, an AI certification, because I want everyone in our company to become AI savvy. No, very few people in Lebanon now have the bandwidth to think about doing AI training to their team members. So having this possibility to step back helps you focus on what will make you a better company after. Because what keeps me awake at night is when this is over, and it will be over, to have all our team members completely out of energy, all our stores to be completely not maintained, etc. And you have newcomers that will come when the time is perfect,
fresh
and exactly fresh, and have amazing store and take out the market share. And we don't want this to happen. So it's like, what is it that we can do today to prevent this and to be at the forefront when the good days are going to come? We want to be the best and ready to enjoy the good days and not only the bad days.
From our founders, and I really want to get their attention here on the role of the CEO. So you have to balance between, being physically present, which is very important, being visible, which is even more important. But at the same time, being the forward-looking entity or the forward-looking force of the company. So you want to tackle day-to-day, but you have to either have the discipline to really look, to keep some time for the forward-looking part of your job, or really divide and conquer and have, maybe your COO being the one that's looking into the disruptive moves and everything that's happening on a day-to-day basis, while you're actually looking at what happens next. So I think this is very difficult to balance, and we have a tendency to go in the rut and to kind of forget everything else, which is very normal, I guess.
Absolutely. And here the key is, like in a lot of things, is to have an amazing team. Like, I'm blessed to have an outstanding team. I can be in Dubai, they are in Lebanon. I'm adding value to them, they are adding value to me, and together we are making the business better. But I've been in this business for a very, very long time. My management team as well, like, we know really well how to work together. So focusing on teamwork, focusing on creating a great team outside of a crisis can really help you within the crisis, where each person knows exactly what their role is, what they have to add to the table, so that you can have this balance, as you say, of taking these difficult decisions and making things work in a crisis, but also looking at the next step, because the crisis is going to end.
Okay, so if I were to summarize a bit everything that you've said today, I think I would go about it in 3 parts, right? So the first part, you really talked a lot about being prepared. So the idea of having those plans, building those scenarios, getting the right processes and reactions ahead of time. When we're outside a crisis period, when everything's going well, taking the time to really set this up. We are in a crisis-prone country, so we really need to be pragmatic about that and say, okay, this is the best process, and this is the way forward whenever we're in a crisis. So first of all, preparation.
And now preparing for the next step of the crisis, because like now, okay, we're in a war, what could come next? So you need to have these discussions with your team as well, because next step is coming.
Second is actually dealing with the crisis. And if I want to summarize what you said, is, some very tactical moves of deciding on the essential versus non-essential, treating things and cost centers from most vulnerable to least vulnerable, communication, transparency, and being very honest and open about, this is what's happening now, this is the visibility that we have. It can be 1 week, 1 month, or 2 months, and being clear with your team about that. Preserving your mental health as a CEO and trying to balance both acts of short-term survival and long-term planning. So this, I would say,
this is the most difficult.
Absolutely, and these are most questions that we get from our founders. And third is managing for the after, and really trying to look at the opportunities, the potential ideas, re-questioning, disruption that actually happened for your business, and look at the ones that were actually accretive or that might create value on the long run. So these are kind of the 3 things I have. Any additional points or best practices or ideas that we didn't cover that you'd like to add?
I think we covered a lot for one podcast. We can deep dive in anyone at any point if you need to. And I'm very active on Instagram at the Catalyst of Growth. You can send me any question. I'm very fast on responding to the DMs. I respond to all my
I was
DMs.
Actually, because you're mentioning it, I was going to mention, though, Christine is the Catalyst of Growth on Instagram. There's the Empowering Tribe for the women,
Female
female founders
yeah.
that would like to join as well. And there's her book club, which is a business book club that meets once a month, every Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month, to discuss.
We had Chris Voss in person in our last last session.
Very prominent business books, and sometimes we have live authors as well. So Chris Voss for negotiation. For those of you who don't know him, please Google him. It was really nice.
He's a guru on negotiation.
So, closing remarks, Christine?
My closing remark would be that this shall pass. Just put in your head that this is a time in your life, whether it's 2 months or 5 years, we don't know, but it's gonna pass. And you need to pace yourself to be able to become stronger after this crisis is over. Don't let this crisis crush you. You need to crush it like a small, snowball before it gets bigger, because it will pass. And the people who's gonna be working on their mindset and on getting ready for the after crisis are the ones that we're gonna be remembering. So I hope that this is going to be you.
So I would like to end with a message to our founders. I know you're tired. It's been 5 years at best.
Yeah, if not 20.
If not 20, that we've been going through crisis after crisis. I know it feels like a series of succession of blows and hard hits. But it's really the way you manage the crisis that might get you out of it, and that will define how you will get out of it. Obviously financially, but also culturally and internally in terms of strength and processes. You're going to define what type of company you're going to be left with. So of course, protect yourself. So you know what you hear in airplanes, put your own oxygen mask first. So that's our message to you. Do put your own oxygen mask first, because the sustainability of the company will depend on whether you're going to make it or not, whether you're going to collapse or not, and whether you're going to have enough of a cold head to take decisions that might be hard, but that need to be taken. And last but not least, this is an opportunity, or this is the time for you to reach out to your ecosystem. We at IM are your ecosystem, but not only. Look at people around you and don't hesitate to ask for help. This is a time for us to unite and find solutions together. On that note, I leave you. Thank you again, Christine, for your time.
It was a pleasure to be here.
Additional business content, please go to the link below and you'll have additional podcasts that we're running for IM. Thank you.